Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Rage, and we are back today with a quick update here in regards to one of the newest items that have been now officially added into the game, guys. And to be honest, not sure how I'm fully feeling about it still right now because it's still quite new, but at the same time, I can already talk a bit on the experience of it and overall how it's impacted me personally as a free-to-play player. So, what am I referring to, guys? Well, it's actually the new Overpower system, right? So you might have noticed this when you go into your roster now. There are these certain rankings that are placed on your characters here, and that does actually make a difference in the PvP content right now. So I'll give you an example here. Obviously looking at the top of my screen, Gore is utilized here for my arena. So you can see here, everything holds the same, the power and whatnot, the upgrades. But now with that new ranking that we see, that's kind of highlighted in that little hexagon with the number, you can actually tap it now. And you can see I'm currently at a rating of 10 for Overpower, right? But now you can actually take a look at, what exactly that entails, and also what the two remaining Overpowers are going to be, right? So for rank 11, you actually need to achieve Gear Tier 20, and then for rank 12, you need to achieve ISO 8 T3 level 5, which is going to be the next level elevation here for Overpower. But you can see even Overpower bonuses right here, even against enemies that have a +1 in Overpower rank, you're going to be gaining an additional 50% damage and focus, which is quite sizable. Obviously this is not the best way to kind of view it because it only shows you what you can upgrade on, but I guess the best example would be if you had a character, say for example right now my Punisher, he's got nothing right now. So if you tap that, you can actually see all the rankings, right? So rank 1, you need to achieve level 90. Rank 2, you need to achieve Gear Tier 17. Rank 3, the blue ISO level 3, level 95, Gear Tier 18, ISO 8 blue level 5. We got level 100 for rank 7, Gear Tier 19 for gear 8. For rank 8. Rank 9 is ISO 8 T3. That's why you saw my Gore at that level. And then level 105 is what gives you the 10th ranking. And then obviously we talked about 11 and 12. So this is basically a simple way to do it, but you can see here really the time that you can start achieving this Overpower ranking is level 90, right? And it's quite strategic. It benefits a general majority of players that have already invested in their teams, but at the same time now it does promote essentially for those that invest in characters earlier rather than later, it's going to give them benefits sooner, right? It's going to allow them to use that character in a more kind of dominant manner until everyone else kind of catches up with the meta, as well as obviously bringing up those upgrades. So it is quite unfortunate for those that are lagging in the game. They're gonna feel this pinch for sure, because as I touched on earlier, Overpower truly gets unlocked when you're level 90, right? And that's quite a steep. Now that we've kind of seen the economies in the game with gold and trading materials change hands quite a bit in the last few years. I mean, everyone's pretty tight for resources right now, unless you've been hoarding, right? If you've been hoarding and spending continually, that's probably one of the only positions that you'll be in a great spot in. But yeah, it's definitely created a very interesting dynamic now because I would say the general majority of players that care about their roster, I would say you're probably gonna fall between that 7 and that 8 because, for example, in the Overpower ranking, this is kind of unfortunate, but it does you do need to build it sequentially in order to get that ranking. So for example, my Shadow King here, he does actually have the ISO 8 purple, he's got the level 105, he's got the Gear Tier 19, but I actually skipped one here. I didn't do right here, I didn't do the T3 ISO 8 level 3, right? So that's something that you can go through in your roster now and check off. So in this case, this is something I definitely wanted doing. The reason why Shadow King wasn't invested in terms of the purple was because I didn't need him for raids. Typically, that was kind of my trigger point, right? So a lot of my raid teams are at level 3, which means they'll likely be at that ranking 10. But yeah, now players are gonna have to go through the roster and ask the big question: hey, why is my character only sitting at Overpower ranking 7, not 8 or 9 or 10, right? And for example, another good one is Lilandra. We know we need her for Age of X later for Professor Xavier, so what's stopping me here? Let me tap on the 7. And it's because I actually have not gone through and done her Gear Tier 19, even though I've already done her level 105. And, I guess I didn't do her Purple ISO 8 yet either. And again, that's just me being conservative. That's just me saving my resources because, again, if I don't need her in raids just yet, and,
war isn't my priority in this game, so that's why all my upgrades aren't exactly going straight to PvP characters, right? But where this does impact me on a daily basis now is I have seen it for sure in arena, and there's some good things to say about it, and there's some bad things, right? Now it's very easy to kind of pinpoint who your equals are, right? So in this case, my arena team is also ranked 10, so you can see everybody's going to be holding pretty flat, which means the overpower ranking won't actually make a difference. Where it's going to make a difference, though, however, is if your defense is actually on a lower rating. So for example, let me show you my defense. The same as everybody else, right? 10s across the board, pretty flat and pretty similar team. But the thing is, if you have an 8 or a 9, now you're going to be potentially targeted. You know, if I see an 8 or a 9 here, or better yet, if you see any kind of gear tier 20 characters, like maybe an Odin at gear tier 20, you would see him at 11. You would not want to attack him because now he is going to have an additional 50% damage and focus against you. So thankfully with arena, you only need to invest in 5-6 of the best characters in the game and be adapting to it. So you definitely won't feel it as much in arena. Hopefully not. I've done some attacks yesterday against some opponents that are higher. I think there was an Odin that was 11, and I got absolutely destroyed, even though I was attacking him. That additional buff stat makes a huge difference. Where you're going to see it for sure now is going to be Crucible, because that's also PvP. And then, like I said, in War, for sure you're going to see it, because if you're up against an opponent that just didn't invest in your team, didn't pour the ISO 8 and the gear tiers and obviously the levels, you're going to see for sure. But now we're in this predicament where players like myself, we have to go through a roster and be like, okay, I expect my characters to be an overpower ranking 7 or 8. Where do they stand right now? It takes away from that aspect when the min-maxing, right? For example, my Storm right now, she is doing phenomenal in the spotlight raids. I don't need to invest in her anymore. I don't need to bring her up to 105. I don't need to bring her to gear tier 19. She's doing it as you can see on screen here. Everything shown, all the notes, she's doing fine. But she is only an overpower ranking 7, which means in any kind of PvP content, she is going to be at a disadvantage compared to someone that's a rank 8 or 9 or 10. It's even more pervasive. So I'm not sure, to be honest, guys. I'm not really a fan of it, because now I am feeling the pressure of having to spend more resources than I need to. And they say that, this is supposed to encourage theory crafting. I think it's really intended to sink your resources, honestly. That's kind of how I'm feeling anyways, from a free-to-play perspective. I'm the person that would have a lot of resources, because that's how I min-max my game. But you can see I have a lot of 5s and 6s across the board because I've min-maxed the game. I've been efficient in upgrading certain characters and teams, and now I have to go through and see, if there's going to be some liabilities, especially if you're in War, especially if you're in Crucible. You need to be taking note of that. I think it's going to create a more intense competition between those that spend and have resources versus those that don't want to spend or don't want to use their resources because of a set game mode. So right now, I wish the upgrades weren't as pervasive. Maybe they'll nerf it a bit. 50% damage and focus for even one level is quite significant. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, guys. I don't think it's a great update. I think it does kind of create pressure on those that don't spend already. So we'll see in the meantime, though. The good news is that from an arena standpoint, it doesn't seem too obvious just yet, but we'll see that later on, right? When we have new characters and additions, it is going to be a race against time between, those that have the resources to invest in them right away versus those that have to wait. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing that gap widen and widen, especially in a setting like Alliance War, where you're up against opponents with different teams and maybe their defenses you can't even touch now because of those overpower rankings. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, though. I am eager to hear back. Thank you for your time as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.